Welcome to The Magic of Positive Thinking, a podcast hosted by Norb Savannasini, founder of AmericanEagle.com, and writer Al Edwards. Norb, number 32 podcast, 32nd podcast. Happy anniversary. How are you today?
Fantastic. 32nd is a good number.
It is.
It's actually, if you add it, the 3 and the 2 is a 5, and I like 5.
I like that. And you know what?
Yeah. I got 5 fingers, 5 toes.
Exactly.
On each hand. Yeah.
I like 32 because it's between 31 and 33. I've always liked that about that number.
It's just like when you ask somebody from another country if, is there a 4th of July in your country? And usually most foreign people say no. And you tell them, well, what's between the 3rd and the 5th? Which is still pretty funny. But it's a wonderful day. As usual, I thank God for this gift we got every day, this present. Today happens to be a beautiful day in Chicago after a couple of days of rain, which we needed.
Right.
And it's just incredible just to be alive and to see this wonders that we have. And
to be back again on our show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was thinking about the rain yesterday, and, rain, you forget your umbrella and you have to walk to the building and get a little wet and everything. But if it wasn't for the rain, we wouldn't have all the beautiful flowers and plants, and we wouldn't enjoy the sunshine as much, right? So you got to have a little rain.
Exactly. If you have a little rain, you'd be full of cacti in the desert, which are not really pretty plants, And
in my house, when you have a lot of rain, you're down with a bucket in the basement. So a little rain is a good thing.
Yeah, right.
So, well, friends, we have a special show for you today. Norb and I, as we've said many times, we do not rehearse this show, which, as I always say, seems very apparent once you listen to it. But we did talk about our title, and our title of our show today is Only in America. And Norb and I have talked about so many times how special the United States is, and how truly in our short history, so much has been accomplished by this country as in light of, thousands of years of cultures of other countries. It really is extraordinary. And I think Norb is uniquely qualified to talk about this because, as we've talked about before, just about 70 years ago or so, you and your family came to America from Argentina to Bloomington, Indiana. And when I was 16 years old, it occurred to me that Norb is more American, captures that American spirit more than any natural-born citizen. So Norb, what does Only in America mean to you?
Well, it's kind of an interesting thing that whenever I talk to people that were not born in this country, a trait that I share, we all conclude that Americans are probably the most blind in the wonders of America.
Right.
Because, in life, there's ever compensation. Emerson had the law of compensation. If you have something, you're equally as ignorant in another area.
Right.
And I think Americans, by being born here, they just do not know what it is to be born in another country. And there's a few things that America has that are so incredible to the rest of the world. Even today, when, America has really made the world modern. I mean, I don't care where you go in the world. I'm sure there are some really backward countries that I haven't gone. But most of the world, they have electric all over the place.
Sure.
And they have stoves, and they have microwave ovens, and they have TVs. And basically, America has made the world modern. But they also have some features that are still very much American. And the basic thing that it has is what we always talk about, which is positive mental attitude. America has been always a country that provided freedom of thought and being positive, whereas the rest of the world is pretty pessimistic because they're clouded by these old ideas that you're born into,
Right. Right.
So that's probably the greatest gift that America can give, humanity.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. And that kind of leads into something that I've always enjoyed your stories over the years. One of the things you talk about in Europe, you can't get a good amount of ice to save your life is because that's how it's always been in Europe, and it's not going to change. But in Japan, where they embrace change and the new, just like America, you can get all the ice you want. And then you were in Germany one time. Tell the story of when you were in Germany and you ordered two things instead of one choice or another, and what happened.
Yeah, it's not only in Germany, but in Europe in general, they have these standards of how food should be served. And I don't mean in plates or anything like that, but if it's served, for example, I ordered a sausage dish in Germany, which was really excellent. And it included one extra thing, which was either a potato salad or a sauerkraut. And I told the waiter in a very nice way that, I would like to have both. And he didn't understand me. It was one of the few Germans that didn't understand English, because in Germany, the bulk of the people speak English.
Sure, yeah.
And there was a lady sitting next to us, which was also German. And she said, "Oh, my God, you gave this guy a real big problem, because that's not the rule." So, but she explained to him that I would be willing to pay. And then I got, when the meal came, I got the sausages with the potato salad and no sauerkraut. So my wife said, "Are you going to complain?" I said, "No, I don't want to complain, because, it doesn't make any difference. I can live without sauerkraut." And at the end of the meal, when we've finished and they took the plates, the guy brought a little plate with sauerkraut,
Oh
which,
my gosh.
is not the way that I like to eat sauerkraut. But, not to just talk about the Germans, but Italians, they don't put cheese on rice. And one time I wanted grated cheese because I ordered rice, and the waiter says, "No, you don't put cheese on rice." And I said, "No, I do." And, that's one of the things about the U.S. is that most Europeans have no notion, and I've seen this because I've been lucky enough to deal with European people in my business. When you order eggs in Europe, they're served one way.
Which is how?
Sunny side up.
Oh, sunny side up. Okay,
yeah.
I can live with that.
And when a European guy comes here and we go to a restaurant place, that they say, "How do you want your eggs?" They look at the waiter like saying, "What are you talking about?" Because we want easy side up. We have all this variety, the choices, and I think that reflects the mind of America. That, yeah, you can order whichever way you want. There is no right way to eat an egg. The right way is the way you prefer it. And if you'd like it one way and I like it another, that's our business,
And that's these are funny, wonderful stories, and I always enjoy. I never get tired of hearing those stories. So that's why I asked Norb to tell those. They are funny little stories, but they really are illustrative of the thinking difference between the old world and the new world. And the American spirit has always been, let's not pay attention to how it's always been. Let's pay attention to what can be. What are we able to do? And figure out.
Yeah, it's funny, and I've mentioned this before, and I want to mention it again because I'm hooked on this, and it's a nice thing to get hooked on. I recommend it. But if you watch the History Channel on how America was made, and the food in America and all this, it's just incredible what America has brought to the world. And these are all people that some of them had absolutely no background in what they invented. I mean, if you watch the Walt Disney series, which is I think about 5 or 6, what this guy did, Walt Disney was poor. He was came from a poor family. They didn't have any money. They don't even know. They really don't know how far along he went in school.
Right.
Some people say 4th grade.
Right.
They don't even know. But he had a vision, and this is a guy that created more happiness in the world than any other human alive, without a doubt. And this is, only in this country could Walt Disney make it, because he was just a poor kid that could draw, and he had this vision. And this guy bet everything in his life of what he wanted to do. He had a vision that he wanted a Technicolor cartoon. The first time that a Technicolor cartoon was made was by Walt Disney.
Was that
the
Fantasia?
First time that voice, no, it was a Silly Symphonies, the Forestry, something like that.
Right.
And then, the synchronization of Mickey's voice. That was the first talking cartoon. And, they didn't have money to pay for the last recording of that. And he sold his car.
Oh, my gosh.
To pay for that. They were so broke.
Wow.
And when they finished Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, this guy, he hawked everything. Because then everybody said, Walt, you're crazy. Who the heck's going to go a full-length cartoon?
Wow.
And by the way, when they ran it, that movie made $135 million in 1937. And then he hawked everything again to create Disneyland when they told him nobody goes to amusement centers anymore.
Right.
So you can't describe anything more American than that. He just had a vision and he went for it. And everybody told him, Walt, you're nuts.
Right.
Okay. And we talk about Thomas Edison failing 3,000 times. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But it's a mindset. They could order the eggs any way they wanted. They weren't told when they were a kid, this is the way you eat eggs.
We don't do that.
And something so fundamental is American.
And when the American spirit was born, it was born from the idea that we are going to do things in a new way. We're going to be a risk taker. Walt Disney, Henry Ford, all these great people that have done amazing things are risk takers. And you, Norb, have also been a risk taker. Of course, the biggest risk, starting a podcast with me, that was the biggest risk.
Yeah, really, which is obviously.
I'm not sure how that's working out.
This has not made a cent for us. Yeah.
I want to thank the three people that do listen to the podcast. Norb, me, and my mom. Those are the three people. But
no, I have my grandsons.
There you go.
I order them.
We're up to 6 now, so that's really good. You've been a risk taker in your life. I think the American spirit has inspired you in all the many things you've done. Tell us about that, how the spirit of America fueled your ability to go out and do things.
Well, one thing that's one of the nice things about being foreign born is that you actually know what other countries are like.
Right.
And if you go to Europe in general, I don't know how it is in the Asian countries, but in Europe, to start a business, it's an incredible ordeal. And, in the U.S., it's not as easy as it was 50 years ago, and I'm old enough to, have had that experience. But it's still relatively easy.
Right.
And in other countries, it's just, unless you have the degree or you have that status of being in that part of society that allows you to go to a banker and ask for a loan or things like that, you don't have the choices.
Right.
And that's just a fact, okay? Here, a guy can come out of Greece and without any education and open up a little diner, and pretty soon the guy, has a few bucks, he saves a few bucks, and he buys a apartment building and then another one, and pretty soon the guy has a lot of income coming in, and because he couldn't do that in Greece. And it doesn't apply only to Greece, it applies, to all countries.
Right, of course.
So, and I think this is something that if you're born here and if you're here, by God, believe that, because this is it. It's for real,
Right.
And don't let negativity control your mind. That's the key.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We've talked about this a lot, and I'm going to use my favorite expression. The reason that people that are born here don't recognize the opportunities that people like yourself who were born in another country is because familiarity breeds contempt. And that was from the Strangest Secret recording that our entire show. I've been working on pronouncing familiarity, and I'm getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, I noticed that you're getting better. Yeah,
the first 17 shows, friends, I could not pronounce it to save my life, but I'm working on it. But familiarity does breed contempt. In other words, when you become familiar with something, you think that it's always that way or it's that way everywhere else, and it's not, is it?
No. It's basic. It's just basic. If you envision it and you have a goal in your mind, go for it. And this is probably the most important thing there is. You will probably fail many times before reaching that goal.
Right.
Toyota, I don't know if I mentioned this the last, but this was also a show on History Channel about cars that made the world. Toyota, when they first started making cars, they were a horrible failure. And when they brought the first car to the United States, that thing was terrible. It couldn't keep up with the rest of the cars. It was heavy. It was just a disaster. And, when they told Mr. Toyota, my God, that we failed in the United States, he says, good. We're going to learn from that mistake.
Wow.
And even if it was in Japan, that's an American attitude.
Right.
He said, good, we learn from that. Now, just think how valuable that is.
Right.
Don't do it again.
Right, exactly.
No, instead of saying, oh, my God, I failed, the hell with it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And another side note to that story that I'm not sure we talk about, it was actually in my book that I wrote a few years ago, but Mr. Honda, yes, the Honda friend, the one out in your parking lot right now, he tried to get a job at Toyota. He was making, I think it was piston rings or something.
Yeah.
And he also was a failure and could not get a job at Toyota making his piston rings. And that was Mr. Honda. What do you think about that?
Well, and Honda was a very poor guy. I mean, this is another interesting thing that after World War II, because there was no structure of society like they used before the war, and we talked about this before, this guy was really poor. And what's funny is that in the Japanese culture, men are very much the head of the household and the women do everything.
Right.
And Honda's wife used to have to buy the groceries and everything else riding a bicycle. And she came back home one day and she was mad at him because he was sitting, doing nothing, and she was doing all the work.
Right.
So he found a little company that made little motors. And after the war, that company didn't have any application to sell the motors. So he started buying those and attaching them to bicycles.
Oh, my God.
And that's how Honda got started.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, all from adverse. I mean, he failed at selling the piston rings. His wife was mad at him for not doing anything. But he put this little motor in bicycles. Then he started selling them. He even had to cheat on getting gasoline because there was a thing. I mean, it's an incredible story. But it's, I don't think that could have happened without America.
Right.
Crazy as it seems.
Right.
Because I'm sure that Mr. Honda, and I don't know this, and I always pride myself in not saying things here that are not, things that we can prove.
Right, accurate.
So this is an opinion. But I'm sure when he was a kid, he went to see American movies, and when he saw John Wayne riding a horse and, getting ahead of any adversity,
right,
it stuck to him,
I bet it did.
Yeah.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
And, and by the way, friends, on your way home tonight from work or whenever you're listening to this, In 1 hour span, when you're out in traffic, just go ahead and try and count all the Hondas you see in traffic.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet you'll have to take off your shoes and use all your fingers and everything else.
Well, you know what's funny, and you know, it's you just reminded me of something. When I was a kid in this country, I was like maybe 13, 14 years old, and my brother-in-law, at that time he wasn't my brother-in-law, but we were best friends. We would sit on the front porch and count Chevys and Fords, and to see, you know, which one won.
Like a market share study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today, you have to do it with Toyotas and Hondas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you see a Chevy or a Ford rarely, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, that's funny. Well, let's talk about, in the spirit of the American outlook in life, Norb, I want to get your reaction to some of the things that we take for granted today that were invented in America. And there's a lot of them, but I just want to hit on some of them and get your thoughts. Number one, the Ferris wheel was invented. If anyone's ever been on a Ferris wheel, that's pretty neat. His name was George Ferris, believe it or not. And how about this one? Did you know chocolate chip cookies were invented in America?
No, but I know that, you know, obviously with Hershey, milk chocolate
Right.
was made, it was a gourmet dish for Europeans,
Right.
and America made it very common. So I think I'm not a baker, but I think a baker would probably have said, hey, let's stick a little chocolate in here.
Exactly.
You know, so
Hershey was the Henry Ford of chocolate. He made it,
absolutely. Yeah.
but listen to this, dental floss, the zipper.
But everybody buttoned up, you know, and if you think about it, zippers have become a kind of an important thing to have life all over the world, really.
If you find buttons to be a hassle when you dress for work or weather, then you have to thank Chicago-based inventor Whitcomb L. Judson for inventing the clasp locker. How about this? The hearing aid, the cardiac defibrillator, radiocarbon dating, the traffic light. And Norb just tried to quiz me before the show. Did I know where the first traffic light was? And I'm proud to say I did. It was in Detroit, which makes the most sense because that's where the cars were being made,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Crash test dummies were invented in this country, although they're not too happy about that because they have headaches all the time, the crash test dummies, right? How about this? The microwave oven. Did that change the world? The microwave oven?
Radar range.
Exactly.
I remember that. I mean, that was, you know, when that came out, and you know what's funny? We all talk about, and, you know, obviously this was never even talked about between Al and I, but every time there's a new invention, there's always people that warn us about the evils of that invention. You know, my father was on radio and TV all his life. And when I was a kid, when TV, especially when color TV came, everybody said, don't watch it too long because it can hurt your eyes.
Right.
And people actually believe that stuff.
Right.
And you know, today with, you know, the 5G towers, you know, oh my God, the 5G and you know, so everything is wrong for you. And you know what, maybe there is a little element of that, but, you know, life expectancy keeps getting longer and longer. It has up to the point where we're becoming so pessimistic that we worry about everything. So life is being shortened. So optimists, and, you know, we've said this before, and I think it should be repeated. People that are optimists live longer, a minimum of 4 years longer. It's a proven fact. So, you know, instead of taking pills or doing exercise, which, you know, I'm a big believer in Mark Twain's, what he said about exercise. Every time I get the urge to exercise, I sit down and wait for the urge to leave. Be optimistic. I prefer to be optimistic than do exercise, you know? I mean, if it's the same amount of lifetime, I'll take being positive.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, listen to this with the microwave. The microwave was not originally intended for kitchen use. In 1945, which was at the end of World War II, Percy Spencer, an engineer from Maine, was working on the magnetron for radar sets at Raytheon, discovered that microwaves had unintentionally melted the chocolate bar in his pocket.
Yeah.
And sadly, old Percy got kind of ripped off. He only received $2 for inventing the microwave oven, the standard Raytheon rate that they paid their employees for inventions at the time. He never received any royalties. So old Percy, unfortunately, didn't.
Yeah, and to go back on that, to continue what I was talking about, and I got digressed, which I do all the time. People were really afraid of the microwave.
Right.
They kept telling people, don't buy a microwave. This thing, it's emitting radar ray. And it was really valid. A lot of people didn't do it. Luckily, my father, who was an electronics, he always said, that's not paying any attention to that stuff.
Right.
So we actually had, I remember, an Amana radar range.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, it was really expensive.
Listen, you were the first person I ever saw that had a VCR.
Yeah, I've always liked toys. I've always liked toys.
I will never forget you had it. It was an RCA, if I'm not mistaken.
RCA, made by Panasonic.
Yeah. It was a VHS, and you press a button, and the tape dispenser would pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
And it had click buttons, and your house was the first time I ever saw a VCR, and I had never seen anything like that before. But for every invention, friends, there's 10 people standing by saying you're an idiot.
Yeah, or it'll never work. Don't try it. I mean, it'll never work,
Exactly. You had a couple things you wanted to talk about, Norb, there.
Every time we do a show, I kind of want to talk about something that struck me. And, there's a great statement by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which... for you that you don't know who he was, do a little research on Google.
The great Gatsby.
Yeah. He was really a great guy.
Yeah.
And this is a quote that he had, which I really love. For what it's worth, it's never too late.
Wow.
Or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or you can stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you make it the best. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again.
Wow.
That's F. Scott Fitzgerald. And, we have a problem in this country that we don't respect some of these old, incredibly great people we've had.
Right.
Here's another one that I don't know where this quote came from. It doesn't have anybody's name. And we talk about this all the time, but it's a short one, but I really like it. When you fail, you don't start from zero. You start from experience. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success.
God, that's amazing.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
Okay, go ahead. You say something. I'm tired.
Well, if there's one thing I can do, it's talk. Everyone knows that by now. But I think both of those quotes really embody the American spirit. The American spirit is not encumbered by tradition, by history, by what's happened to you in your life, by what people tell you about yourself. It's all about believing in yourself and going with your gut and your heart. And we've talked about this before, perseverance. If nothing else, America has been a lesson in perseverance.
Yeah, well, what's interesting in this country, and I noticed that when I talk, because I listen to my podcast once in a while.
Oh, you're the one that listens.
I'm the one. That's the fifth or sixth.
Okay.
Yeah, but I always say the same things all the time, which I'm going to try not to do.
Nobody
But
wants you to stop, Norb.
the one
We
thing
love it.
that's interesting is that when our founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, they wrote something that very few people can understand. And it's so deep. And they put it in such simple terms that it escapes most people, because the beauty of the world is simplicity. And it starts in the pursuit of happiness. Now, they didn't say that happiness was just eggs the way they make it in Europe.
Right.
They said in the pursuit of your happiness. And that's so beautiful that's incredible. It escapes most people to understand the simplicity of that. And I think if you can take one thing that describes America is that sentence, in the pursuit of happiness. Because what's happy for you,
right?
You got a Model T Ford. You're happy riding in that car.
Right.
Well, some people might think you're nuts because who the hell wants to have an old Model T Ford? But that makes you happy.
Right.
And, who's to say that they have any business saying the description of happiness?
Exactly.
So the beauty of our minds is that, this is the first country that told you by that statement, you have a free mind to do whatever makes you happy. And when Walt Disney had these dreams, he was happy. And when Edison sat in this room and failed 3,000 times how not to make a light bulb, he was happy doing it.
Right.
And, happiness is different from everybody. And that's the beauty of America.
And that's why you pursue it. Because you need
that's
to find...
why you pursue it. Yeah. Just be happy. There's an old saying that, everybody says it, especially the people that are successful and that I've observed. And this is 100% people. This is not 99.9. It's 100. If you do what you're happy at, you never work.
Right.
You never work.
Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly. And that's 100%. So, Walt Disney liked what he did. Thomas Edison liked what he did. Right. Henry Ford used to go on the production line and actually put wheels in the car. He liked to do that.
Right.
He didn't need to.
Right.
He had all the money in the world.
Right.
But,
No, you're right. I love driving my Model T. It makes me happy. It does make me happy, but I will tell you, the people who are not happy are the people behind me in my Model T.
Yeah, right.
I always get a fresh breeze in my Model T because of the air from the cars passing me constantly. But that's okay.
But see, here's the other thing. Trust me that those people went home and they said, we just saw a Model T, which gives them something to talk about. And, otherwise they're dull as hell.
Exactly.
At least now they saw Model T.
And I promise you, friends, it's the most fun you'll have going 27 miles an hour. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
So, well, I think we have had another fun, great show. And friends, I think in the end, all we're talking about is that we're very lucky. I assume nearly all of us here are listening to this show in the United States. And as we all know from the news and everything, there are millions of people who literally are dying to get into this country. And if we're here, we are lucky indeed. And let's take a little bit of that American spirit and apply it to our daily lives. And I think we'll be in really good shape. What do you think, Norb?
Absolutely. And we always end up the show with hopefully an upbeat. And I just want to repeat this thing that I read 5 minutes ago. When you fail, you don't start from zero. You start from experience. Failures is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. And we all want to be successful. And whatever you do, if if you're happy, you're successful because
Right.
you're happy. So it's a wonderful, wonderful country, a wonderful life. Open your eyes, and see the beauty that God has given us.
I love that. Norb, always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you. And dear friends, we hope that you enjoyed this show, and we've got plenty more to do and talk about. So for Norb Savannasini, this is Al Edwards, and we will definitely see you next time. Thank you so much.
Okay. God bless. Bye-bye.